Awesome. We've got Carlos.
Good morning, everyone.
Oh,
And Truman.
And Truman. I heard Truman. Truman is infamous. I love your posts on Truman. He is quite the dog.
Yes, character. He needs his own reality show, I think.
I think he does. There's Mathis in there too, guys. Representative Montoya, it's good to see you.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm driving en route to Taos. So actually, I'm in the passenger seat right now. So it's
good.
A little bit later, I'm going to switch and I'll probably go off camera, but I'll be here. And thank you so much for the good work.
Oh, thank you. And I'm glad you're not driving. I would have been really nervous about that. Thank you for being safe.
Yolanda.
Good morning, Mr. Shinnick. How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you. And you?
I'm great, thank you. Thank you for joining us today.
Pleasure.
Let's see, what else do we have? Amber? Looks like we've got Amber Gallup in the attendees. Hey, Amber.
Hello.
It's good to see you.
HB 33, if you want to go ahead and I'm going to promote you to talk, if you want to, since you had your hand raised.
Just need to know who HB 33 is, huh? It'd be helpful to add your name. Who's HB 33?
Good morning, Yolanda. This is Commissioner Martinez in Socorro County.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me to the meeting.
Let's see, who else are we missing?
Yolanda, I was looking at the item on the approval of the minutes. So we've got April and June minutes for those meetings where we did not have a quorum.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes, sir. That's exactly what happened. I believe we will be okay today.
Good. We may want to indicate that those are minutes of committees of the whole when we approve those.
Okay, thank you. We could count on you, Mr. Trapp, for helping us when you make a motion. When you make a motion to that effect, okay?
Okay.
And let's see, John, is there anybody else that we're missing, and how are we doing with quorum so far?
I do not see anybody else in the attendees right now.
I just moved Rebecca Estrada over. She's on for Nancy Sauer.
Okay, so Miss Estrada is not officially a board member yet, so.
I thought I was just here to, yes, I knew that. I just didn't know if I was supposed to be taking notes or serving as a proxy for Nan. I think we were trying to decide what that looked like. So I'm happy to be in whatever format you think I should be in.
Yeah.
Thank you, Miss Estrada.
I don't think we can have you as a proxy just yet, but it's great. We'll just keep you in the panelist room. We also have DJ on the other side and Manuel Sanchez, I believe.
All right.
Okay, how are we doing?
Mr. Chair, if it's all right, I'm going to start roll call.
Yeah, are we set on quorum?
I want to get an official count here on the roll call and we'll see if we've got quorum on that.
Okay, go ahead.
All righty. Starting with Joanna Anaya. Yashoda Naidu. Johannes Camino. Bryn Davis.
Present.
Dale Decker.
Mr. Decker's not here.
Deborah Heckes.
Is on, I've promoted her. Deborah, if you can hear me, make sure you're clicking the link to get you as a panelist.
Philip Ingram. Mark Lee. Deborah Moore. Joshua Orozco.
Present.
John Rockwell. Carlos Romero.
Present.
Nancy Sauer. And Mathis Cynic.
Present.
Kelly Rupke off.
Present.
Director Rodriguez.
Present.
Deputy Secretary Clark. Paul Espinosa. Carla Kugler.
Present.
Samuel Colapo. Representative Montoya.
Present. Thank you.
Secretary Nair.
Present.
Deputy Secretary Madrano.
Present.
Senator Hamblin. Daniel Schlegel. Commissioner Sanchez.
Present.
Kobe Wilson. Director Trapp.
Present.
And Deputy Secretary Gonzalez.
Present.
John, did you get me, Deborah Heckes?
Deborah Heckes. I do have you now. Thank you, Ms.
Okay.
Heckes. I appreciate it. Okay, Mr. Chair. So according to the bylaws as written now, we do have quorum of 12 board members.
Thank you for that, John. All right, so with the quorum, I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting of the New Mexico State Workforce Development Board to order. Sorry, a bunch of meetings in my head right now. All right, we had our roll call and we do have quorum. Moving on to our first item, welcome, introduction of new members and opening remarks. Well, everybody, welcome. I don't know about the rest of the state, but it is nice and rainy down here in Santa Teresa. I am loving it. I think I saw on Twitter a map. The rest of the state is also feeling the same. So I hope everybody is enjoying the rain and hopefully everybody's staying safe. All right, we do have some new board members I'd like to recognize. And if they're here, they're welcome to say a few words. With the American Legion, Paul Espinosa. Are you here, Paul? I don't think I saw you.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, doesn't look like any of the new board members are here, and I know they've sent me emails about other commitments that they've had.
Sure. Okay, well, I'll go ahead and introduce them anyways. We also have with the Boys and Girls Club of Central New Mexico, Colby Wilson, and then the owner of Annapurna's World Vegetarian Cafe. I probably mispronounced that, and I'll probably mispronounce her name, Yashoda Naidu.
You said it right. That's
I
exactly
did.
it. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, welcome. Hopefully we can see them at the next meeting. And I also want to recognize Deputy Secretary of PED, Angelo Gonzalez, who will now also be representing PED with us today. So Angelo, I did see you, so welcome.
Thanks. It's great to be here.
All right, moving on to our next item, the approval of the agenda. Do we have any changes from staff? I'm not seeing any or hearing any. So if there is there a motion to approve the agenda as is?
So made.
I got Bryn Davis.
Commissioner Sanchez seconds.
And Manny Sanchez with the seconds.
So
John.
Mr. Chair, this is Greg Trapp. If there are no changes, we don't need to take a vote on the agenda approval.
All right, thank you, Greg, for that. So since there are no changes, we'll move on through. Moving on to item 3, approval of the minutes for both our, well, for the April 7th, June 2nd, and August 4 meetings. Has everyone had a chance to review those, and are there any changes?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the meeting of the Committee of the Whole for April 7 and June 2nd, and the board meeting on August 4.
I'll second. Deborah Heckes.
All right, we got the motion by Greg Trapp and second by Deborah Heckes. John, will you please take roll on this?
Bryn Davis,
Yes.
Deborah Heckes,
Yes, yes. Sorry, I couldn't get unmuted.
Joshua Orozco,
Yes.
Carlos Romero,
Yes.
Mathis Sennick,
Yes.
Kelly Rupke Arthur,
Yes.
Director Rodriguez,
Yes.
Carla Kugler,
Yes.
Representative Montoya,
Yes.
Secretary Nair,
Yes.
Commissioner Sanchez,
Yes.
Director Trapp,
Yes,
Mr. Chair, we have unanimous approval.
Thank you, John. And I am seeing Senator Hamblin join us now. Welcome, Senator. We are voting on the April 7th, June 2nd, and August 4 minutes. I don't know if you want to give a vote for that.
I do a vote yes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, with that, the minutes are approved. Now moving on to want to introduce another person to the meeting today. We have the new Workforce Solutions Secretary, Sarita Nair. Welcome. You want to give us any words?
Thank you, Chair Orozco. Hello, everybody. It's great to be here. My name is Sarita Nair, and I am in my 7th week as Secretary of Workforce Solutions. I'm very excited to be here. I've gotten to work with some of you in the past, but for those who don't know me, I spent the previous 4.5 years as the city manager of the city of Albuquerque. And then before that, I was at the Office of the State Auditor. And before that, I was in the private practice of law for about 10 years. And I'm a Lobo. My daughter's an Aggie, so we're a blended family. And, I'm just very excited about the frontline work that we do here. I got a chance to be up in Mora yesterday for the resource fair. We got to visit with about 100 friends and neighbors up there who are still very much dealing with the aftermath of the fires and the floods, and watching our folks work one-on-one on those front lines, getting people enrolled for benefits, TANF, the work opportunity programs, as well as unemployment insurance, and the compassion and the tenderness with which we work with our folks in these communities that are going through difficulties really just filled my heart, as I know it does for all of you. And that's why you're all spending your time serving on this board. And so again, excited to be here. I know everybody here has been talking about the labor force participation rate. It's on everybody's mind. And if you haven't gotten a chance to read, the Labor Statistics Bureau folks in our office did a great report, and I'll stick it in the, well, I tried to stick it in the chat. I don't know if I did it properly, but we have a great report out there, but I think the bottom line is New Mexico has always had a strange relationship to the labor force participation rate. It's always been a little different, a little bit behind the curve in both ups and downs behind other states in the United States. But a couple of major trends are that the pandemic really caused families to re-examine how they make and spend their money and their time. And then when you compound that with things like the low cost of living, low wages, and the concentration of employment in the service industries here, that could be contributing. We know it's correlating. It could be contributing to the low labor force participation rate. And then, of course, statewide, we are continuing to lose working age folks. And so while they come out of the numerator and the denominator of that rate, it does affect the rate in a negative way. So, I know that for the past 4 years, this administration has worked very hard to set the foundation for tremendous investments in our workforce, and our partners in the legislature have done a tremendous job advancing an agenda that really puts families at the center of what we prioritize here in the state. So it's time now to execute on those initiatives like early childhood education, the Opportunity Scholarship, paid sick leave, which our department is front and center in. We've got to make sure every family knows about these opportunities and participates in them. We have to make sure that kids who are going to school on the Opportunity Scholarship are actually making the most of that and are able to connect with trades and jobs and career paths and passions that'll keep them here in New Mexico and part of our labor force. We need to connect career and technical education at all levels to good jobs through pre-apprentice and apprentice programs. And we are grateful to get some general fund dollars to be able to work on that for this year and next year. And of course, we got to make sure that the entire country knows that New Mexico is a great place to live and work, so that we can bring some of our families back. We can attract more of our boomerangers. And then also, if you can live anywhere, this is a great place to live. So remote workers also need to understand how great it is to be in New Mexico. And then, of course, we got to work together through all levels of government to just maximize the impact of these programs. Here at Workforce, we took TANF in-house for just over a year now, and that's the Temporary Assistance to Needy Families program. We brought it over. It was outsourced from the Human Services Department, and it's been a great partnership. Thanks, Deputy Secretary Medrano, I know, has been instrumental in making that successful. And I think it's a great opportunity to meet families in some of their most difficult times and to connect them to that wide range of education and work opportunities that we can provide. We've also trained, this is a little bit in the weeds, but I think for this group, we've trained folks who know how to do both the unemployment benefit side and the career placement side. Employment services, as we call it. They're called career transition specialists, and they're filling the gap between these two programs. So now it's this sort of a no wrong door where you come in the door to get your benefits and you're immediately in the pipeline for job opportunities and training opportunities, and you're learning about workforce training dollars. I think it's really exciting, and I got a chance to meet with the initial cohort. They're super excited about being able to serve a lot of the rural and frontier communities, especially in this way. And so that's another way we maximize the impact of all these investments. Of course, we got to respond to urgent workforce needs. And I'm sure you've heard and discussed the hospitality training program, the law enforcement training program. We are working now. I was in Farmington 2 weeks ago, and I'll be in Farmington this week to work with the folks who are changing jobs and changing careers as a result of the shutdown of the San Juan Generating Center. And there's a lot of initiatives around that are exciting, hopefully. And as I mentioned, expansion of apprentice programs. We're up to over 1,900 apprentices in the state, which is almost a doubling from about 6-7 years ago. So that's great work by our team and by everybody in the community and labor to bring folks together in that meaningful way that it will help employers keep employees and help us keep New Mexicans in the state. And then we got to increase general fund dollars to fill the gaps left from federal programs. The pre-apprenticeship dollars that we got last year is a great example of some of that opportunity that's going to be created to work with everybody in the community and not just the specific populations who receive federal funding. And then we also have to make sure we're doing a good job supporting our sister government agencies who are also struggling to find a workforce. I know that the board, this board has identified that better services from government to the people is a key to improving the business climate in New Mexico. And a key to that is making sure that our agencies are fully staffed. And so we take that role of our department very seriously and hope that we're being a good co-agency in that. So, you know, I don't really have any agenda for the department except to make us the best at what we do and to continue to serve, of course, our most vulnerable populations, but all New Mexicans, connecting them to jobs that make their lives full, that make them happy, that they can be passionate about, that give good benefits and allow them to create the lives they want for their families. So with that, I'll stop. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, excited to be here and thanks for having me.
Thank you, Secretary. Are there any questions from the board? I'm not seeing any, so it looks like you're going to get off easy, Secretary. Well, thank you very much for joining us and welcome. All right, let's move on to our first action item or decision item of the day. Item 5, discussion and vote on bylaws revisions recommended by Ad Hoc Bylaws Committee. All right, John, do you have the bylaws that you can put up on the screen?
I do.
So what if you all remember at the last meeting, I asked for some volunteers to review the bylaws and think of any changes we may need. We did that. Kelly and Bryn, we got together along with John and reviewed the bylaws, looked at some changes, and then put together those recommendations, which then the executive committee reviewed as well, because in our bylaws, the executive committee is responsible for reviewing the bylaws periodically. The executive committee, I think, approved all of the changes. And so what we're seeing here is what went through both of those committees. Okay, I guess, John, if you just want to review the changes, some of the changes are just simple wording or some grammatical changes, but some of the big changes you see here. This is in regards to, is that the procedure for if a board member resigns or can no longer be on the board, how we fill those positions. Is that there?
It's up on the screen now. You can see the section that's highlighted.
So I don't know if the board wants me to go line by line, or if you've had a chance to kind of review these overall. Are there any recommendations from the board? We could go line by line, but that might take a while, but if necessary, I'm happy to do it. Not really seeing a recommendation, do it line by line. So we can move on to the next big change, John.
And I just will say a lot of the changes were also based on just like lots of good lessons that we've learned as we've gone through. I think the pandemic has definitely given us a lot of ideas on how we can be more effective with these meetings. Meeting online has absolutely helped us tremendously. We've got greater participation, knowing that our business members, especially for you, it's hard to make a trip to Albuquerque just for a meeting that's possibly going to be 2 hours long. So we've done that. But there was a change. John, do you want to describe the change on the quorum side? Because we did some review of some policy. We reviewed with our federal program officer, and this was probably the change that was most significant for us.
Yes, ma'am. I can kind of give a little bit of history what led to this, and if Mr. Chair would like to discuss the quorum, then we can do that. So a little bit of history and making sure that we were consistent with quorum with the local boards. We decided to review our quorum and looking at the best business practice of having a majority business presence on the board. So with that, we went back to look at our bylaws, and we realized that our bylaws were, very simply put, 10 board members present. And we recognized that the best practice of having a business majority on the board was something we felt we needed to put in the bylaws. So with that, this is where the recommended changes came in. Mr. Chair?
Thanks, Sean. And just as a reminder, WIOA is designed where it's supposed to be led by the private sector. And so that's kind of why the emphasis is on business. And also why we are changing quorum to be a little bit more focused on business. The requirements for quorum would be a minimum of 50% of our business board members. And on top of that, enough other board members so that we have a majority of the board present. I hope that makes sense. So we went round and round trying to wrap our heads around the best way to word that. But we want to ensure that if a decision is made, that a majority of the business board members are present for that decision. And then you still need enough board members from our partner agencies so that we have 51% of board members present at the meeting. Are there any questions on that? I want to make sure everybody kind of understands what we're doing. And if there are questions, since I've been doing this, reviewing this language for a while, I kind of understand it, but I realize it might be a little confusing. Okay, I'm not really seeing any questions, so we can move on. And you'll notice we took out the use of technology section there. We felt both in other section of the bylaws and with our Opens Meetings Act, we kind of covered that already. So that's why that's been X'd out. Do we have other sections, John? I forget if that was the last bit or not.
Mr. Chair, it's the very last section where the chairperson kind of gives the authority or allows the board to create a bylaws committee. And with that, being able to make recommended changes to the board from the bylaws committee, because previously it stated that the executive committee needed to do that.
Thanks, Sean. Yeah, we just realized that there may be some people that specifically want to work on the bylaws, which we had in this situation. So this will allow us to do that. So overall, are there any questions or comments on these changes? Again, it's mainly the outlining of the nomination process if somebody leaves the board, and then changing the quorum. Now that does mean it's going to be a little bit more difficult to meet quorum, but we're going to have to work on that as a board. But that's a challenge I think we're capable of meeting. Okay, I'm not seeing or hearing any comments or questions. So is there a motion to approve the bylaws as written?
So moved.
Mr. Chair, second.
We've got a motion by Mathis and a second by Senator Kerry Hamlin. If there are no further questions, John, will you please take a roll call vote on this?
Yes, sir. Friend Davis.
I vote affirmative.
Deborah Heckes.
I vote affirmative.
And Mr. Chair, I want to recognize Deborah Moore has attended the meeting. Ms. Moore?
Yes,
And do you vote yes on the changes?
I do.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. Joshua Orozco.
I approve them.
Carlos Romero.
Affirmative.
Mathis Sinnick.
Affirmative.
Kelly Rocky-Orth.
Yes.
Director Gallup.
Yes.
Carla Kugler.
Yes.
Representative Montoya.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Secretary, thank you, sir. Secretary Nair,
Yes.
Senator Hamblin,
Yes.
Commissioner Sanchez,
Yes.
Director Trapp.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, we have unanimous approval.
Thank you, John. And with that, the bylaws are approved. All right, and special thank you to Kelly and Bryn. We met a couple times to review the bylaws, and it's not the most fun thing in the world to do, but thank you guys for that work. And then also the executive committee.
Yeah, as the executive committee, I want to thank Kelly and Bren and Josh. Thank you. It made it a little easier on us. We're like, oh yeah, that's good. Thank you. Thanks for your work.
All right. Now moving on to the next item on our agenda, the local board presentations. If you recall, we asked the local boards to kind of give us an update on what's going on in their regions and what their plans are for the coming year. And I think we're going to start off. I'm just going by the agenda. Lisa Ortiz with the Northern Area Workforce Development Board. Are you here, Lisa?
I'm here. Thank you.
All right. Well, I hand it over to you, Lisa.
Thank you, Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Lisa Ortiz. I am the Executive Director of the Northern Area Local Workforce Development Board, and Eric Vasquez is our one-stop operator. Next slide. We serve 10 counties in the Northern region. Title I is our primary source of funding. The North's allocation this year is about a little over 3.7 million, which is a reduction of about 12% from the previous year. Help New Mexico is our Title I service provider and one-stop operator, and our fiscal agent is Lotnick and Sandoval. Next slide. The North is driven by 10 CEOs, 21 board members, which is comprised of local businesses in the area. Some of those businesses represent and include a large employer like the Los Alamos National Laboratory, also a major healthcare provider, San Juan Medical Center, the 8 Northern Pueblos, and many other important representatives in economic development, higher education, workforce. Next slide. Sorry, I'm suffering from a little cold, so. The board's role, the Northern region has identified labor market needs and our work to coordinate and align the workforce needs by helping our businesses find qualified workers to meet the employment needs. We help workers acquire critical skills for employment opportunities, and lastly, but a crucial role on how we provide services in the North and the overall management of our one-stop centers, which includes overseeing and collaboration between partners. Next slide. The Northern regions post-COVID, we did notice higher foot traffic in Gallup, where broadband is limited, and slower traffic in Santa Fe, where broadband is available. Influx in people returning to work, influx of people returning to work. We learned that we need to meet people where they are at and assist businesses, boots on the ground. We needed a big shift in industries that needed employees, such as hospitality and our retail sectors. Those who left jobs are seeking higher wage jobs with more flexibility. Next slide. The unemployment rate in the North, pre-COVID, the unemployment rate was about 5.2%. During COVID, 12.2%. So we are happy to report in September that the unemployment rate has dropped to 4.7%. The cities of Farmington and Santa Fe, the unemployment rate are at some good low, but we know more rural parts of the Northern, finding employees is hard to do with the low wages and those skills willing to travel, for better pay. Next slide. The area of the North, we do have some work to do. There are currently 14,000 job openings in the North and about 3,500 candidates available to fill them. The data shows there are a higher number of job openings by employer. The top 3 are Llano, Christus Health, and state government. We know there's a large need for the job force in information technology, engineering, and nurses, which are high wage jobs. The North also has a need in home health care, restaurant, and retail workers, as well as construction laborers. Next slide. The Northern Board's targets, our first goal is to strengthen our relationship with economic development and education partners, to collaborate with each resources and fill that gap where WIOA alone may not be able to. We wanted to support local business and industry, through targeting the key industry sectors and identifying growth areas. As the data shows, there is an increase in job openings in healthcare, education, and CDL. We've identified our sectors being education, healthcare, trades, and IT. Our subsectors are hospitality and CDL. Next slide. Our Northern business strategies are Tier 1. Tier 1 is which employers with over 50 employees and operates in multiple counties. Typically, we have a better support infrastructure and successful job placement. Our Tier 2 employer that employs under 50 employees and are in rural areas. Employers generally need more support in all levels, but typically play an important role in the community. The board and our service provider work to identify the population and target those employers and job seekers. Next slide. This year's program activities are partnerships with impact. Next slide. Our partnerships with Christus St. Vincent, they are the North's second largest employer with over 900 job openings. Here we have Valerie, who works with our Health New Mexico. She is part of the effort to help recruit, along with Mr. Olguin, who's the manager, board member of Christus St. Vincent Hospital Foundation. We have targeted the hiring events and coordinating our efforts for job placement with higher ed for immediate job placement. And we are proud to have helped educate over 300 nurses with our WIOA dollars in the past 5 years. Next slide. Another high wage employer is GeoMat. They're a leading engineering company that provides geotechnical engineering and construction materials testing, serving the Four Corners area. We have placed several participants in high wage OJTs at about $25 per hour, providing transferable skills for those affected by the mining closures. Next slide. Another high wage business partner is with Roadrunner Health Services. They are a medical provider for mental health services in the correctional facilities. In the North, they operate in McKinley County and Rio Arriba County. We will place our CNAs in an OJT, and they have agreed to provide job placement once complete, which they can earn a high wage from $16 to $55 per hour. Next slide. Another good important partnership is our home health care. They're one of the largest in the area. Beehive Homes, they are trying to address the critical needed area. Beehive Homes, they continue to hire coming out of an OJT. They are in three of our counties, McKinley, Colfax, and San Juan County. Next slide. Our Boys and Girls Club, we are excited to partner with our local Boys and Girls Club in Santa Fe, San Miguel, and McKinley counties. We will be partnering with Santa Fe Teen Club to place youth in a 6-week virtual career training in automotive, manufacturing, public safety, hospitality, and skilled trades for our teens. Next slide. Another partnership is the Restaurant Association Business Partnership on a national level. The association will help and develop a hospitality boot camp and will bring people into the Santa Fe Restaurant Association. We'll be using our WIOA dollars to train a 3 core level of professional development. Next slide. The Northern Board is developing a pilot program with the counties of Rio Arriba, Santa Fe, City of Espanola, Santa Fe Community College, and Northern College. Earn while you learn. It's a work study, which we hope will bring appeal to local government careers and an opportunity to fill dozens of vacancies with college students. Next slide. The Northern Board has many partnerships with the county and municipalities. We are reaching out to assist and provide on-the-job training and work experience in our counties. For example, San Juan County with a mining closure rapid response, Bloomfield Police Department, and the Farmington firefighters. San Miguel and Mora counties, the Mora Sheriff's Department, and the electrical co-ops. Santa Fe County, we are working on a partnership with a hiring event and on-the-job training and partnership with the Secretary of State's office. Next slide. Colfax County, so many good things are happening in Colfax County. The city of Raton has been revitalized with the opening of several businesses. Many partners in Colfax, including supporting entrepreneur Kaivan Kalabari, who's bought several businesses in Raton and played a major role in the revitalization. This new program year, we have, enrolled about 68 WIOA participants in work experience and on-the-job training. We currently had our ribbon cutting to announce the opening of the Raton One-Stop Center. It's a huge success, and we are excited to serve so many participants in the rural area. Next slide. Our Greater Gallup Economic Development Partnership. This partnership is a partnership with the Industrial Workforce Program, provided, training courses in welding and heavy equipment operator. We are at the end of our 3-year pilot program, but the partnership will continue with McKinley County and Southwest Indian Foundation. The program has been a success. We have served over 30 students a year, and now we have increased that participation to 60 participants. The state of New Mexico has recently passed legislation to provide funding to assist the program with additional funding of $50,000. Next slide. The North Central Economic Development District received a $6.2 million Good Jobs Challenge grant. The grant funds will be used to create pathways into high-paying jobs in healthcare and construction, with a focus on Latino, Indigenous, and formerly incarcerated individuals. The Northern Board has full support and committed to providing office space with our one-stops so that we can create that network and working together to assist these individuals. Next slide. The Integrated Basic Education and Skills Training, our IBEST program at Santa Fe Community College. This provides career pathways for automotive, early childhood education, and healthcare, which is the Northern Region Higher Education Partnership. Teaching jobs, related skills, and strengthening reading, writing, and math skills. The program is 1 to 3 semesters for completion of a college certificate. Participants will receive job placement upon completion and can receive a high school equivalency or earn credits toward an associate's degree. Next slide. UNM Taos is a primary provider of many training programs connecting to in-demand career pathways. With the UNM Taos Education and Career Center educational programming, WIOA has supported 18 students and committed a little over $63,000 student tuition and materials. UNM Taos programs have supported training programs in healthcare, education, CDL trainings, and IT. Next slide. The Northern New Mexico Coalition for Work-Based Learning. The coalition purpose is to ensure that youth and adult learners have access to high-quality work-based opportunities in the Northern region that we represent. The organization is a great partnership of 28 employers, nonprofit organizations, workforce training entities, foundations, secondary and post-secondary educational institutions, and tribal and state governments. The goal is to establish a private and public partnership with the entities and work in the same direction. And I am happy to be a member of this coalition. Next slide. Our Youth Build program. The Youth Build is a community pre-apprenticeship program that provides youth to learn vocational skills, job training, and educational opportunities for at-risk youth who dropped out of high school. We have co-enrolled about 18 participants in the Youth Build program, 5 enrolled in the CNM electrical trade programs. The early childhood education program at Santa Fe Community College has projected about 20 participants. Some board and staff will be attending an apprenticeship boot camp in November hosted by NOB. Next slide. Our Title I services in the North has been a challenge in the past 3 years. In PY 21, our numbers for dislocated worker continues to be a hard area to serve due to cost of living. Most, who qualify for dislocated worker funds chose to re-enter employment versus receiving skills. We served 761 participants in PY 21. Our goal this year is to serve about 862 participants with a decrease of WIOA funds. Our eligibility always plays a role, but between service provider and board, there is great capacity. Next slide. Our strategy is to increase the number of participants. Our well-trained and paid CSAs starting at 24. The employees work with participants, businesses, and partners. Temporary assistant for needy families, TANF in our one-stops. We do know that TANF is supported by DWS, but we don't have a TANF employee in our one-stops. Approve outreach to our rural areas. Next slide. The leverage with our service provider, Help New Mexico. Help New Mexico has been the North service provider for the last 2 years. We are going on our 3rd year. We know WIOA is not their only service that they provide to the state of New Mexico. For example, the recent fires in San Miguel and Mora and Colfax counties, Help New Mexico was on the ground making sure that multiple services were available in those areas, along with their PED Summer Enrichment Internship Program. Next slide. Alternative funding. WIOA funding is our primary source of funding, and to be even more effective in the region, we continuously look to partner or apply for grants. Recently, the Northern Board met with Kellogg Foundation to apply for funding to serve in-school youth in McKinley, San Juan, and Cibola counties. The grant funds, also could be used to facilitate the Northern Region Workforce Conference here in Santa Fe that we're kind of working on. Next slide. Enhancing our service delivery in the North. We are using our one-stop centers as a type of one-stop shopping and increasing the effectiveness of employer and job seeker services, including veterans and persons with barriers to employment. In August, we had our grand opening of our one-stop in Farmington, and just last week we had our opening for the Raton. The first time in 10 years WIOA has had a permanent facility, so we're excited about that. October 20th, we'll be having our grand opening for our Santa Fe, another new one-stop location. We are looking also for a larger space in Gallup to assist with the high traffic area and can include additional partners such as DVR. They are wanting to move in about 4 staff members. Next slide. And any additional support needed from the state, one clear pathway of guidance goals. The 4 boards in the state of New Mexico represent a unique area with the right support, to get systems better, universal across the state. Each board is doing something different. For example, the North went from missing 14 out of 15 measures to achieving 14 out of 15 metrics. So we're, excited about that. Also, the lack of having common intake, referral, and data system across the workforce system partners, creates an additional burden for both customers and staff. Many of the one-stop centers are old. The state of New Mexico buildings, lack proper maintenance, as well as lack of Wi-Fi connectivity for the partners and our customers. Thank you. That's the end of my presentation.
Well, thank you, Lisa. Thank you for joining us in the presentation, especially if you're having a cold right now. That's not fun at all. Are there any questions from the board of Lisa?
I've got a question, Mr. Chair. Lisa, thank you very much. When you talk about the lack of consistency in function service codes, do you have any recommendations on what would be the best path to potentially improve them or consolidate that to make life easier for you?
And I do have Eric Vasquez, our one-stop operator, if he does want to add some additional information regarding that area.
Hi, absolutely. And I think just, for example, one area that would be helpful is just our referral process between our different title partners and our non-title partners. We've been working for the better part of 2 years to try to come up with something that works for everyone. And we have not found something that works for everyone, especially since we're dealing with partners that aren't just in our region. So if we establish a referral system in our region, DVR and DWS have totally different systems in Central and the East and the Southwest. And it makes it harder for them. It works for us, works for our Title I provider, but it makes it harder for them. And so it would be helpful if we could have something that was, we all worked on together and came up with together. But so that's the example I'd give.
Thank you. It's always a challenge to plug disparate systems together.
Thanks, Brent. Great question, by the way. I think I saw Amber.
Yeah, thanks. Lisa, really informative presentation. Thank you so much. And as you know, I'm here representing Title II of WIOA, Adult Education. And I saw your mention of Santa Fe Community College and the Taos Tech program, which are great programs, and we're excited to be collaborating. And I'm particularly interested in the Good Jobs Challenge and ensuring that adult education, all of our programs in the Northern region, including Santa Fe Community College and Taos, but also Northern New Mexico College and Gallup and our program in Luna Community College, for example, are also a part of that right from the very beginning. And I was just curious, where you all are in the planning for the Good Jobs, using the Good Jobs Challenge grant, and to what extent I or others from adult education could make sure that we're in it from the very beginning.
I do know it's in the early stages. The grant was just approved. Chris Madrid, who is one of our board members and also works for the Northern Economic Development Coalition that did apply for this grant in Santa Fe Community College. So we'll definitely, get you some more information and in the working group with Chris Madrid and get, that partnership.
I'd really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Really exciting.
Thank you.
This is Eric on that note of the Good Jobs Challenge. Just one of the main components that we are putting in there with the application, we pledge to house their staff that they're bringing in at our different workforce sites. And at Santa Fe Community College, as you know, we share, you all are very generous in lending us space. So I'm sure that they would be happy to have that person part-time there as well. So.
Great.
I think I saw Secretary Nair next.
Thank you, Chair Roscoe. I really just wanted to say thank you to Lisa and Eric for their leadership in the North. Really great story of turning that program in the right direction. And I know it took a lot of work and a lot of sort of energy to make things go well up there. And I think it's been great. I've gotten to spend a lot of time up there in the past few weeks. Also wanted to let folks know that we do have our Capitol hearing next week. So we will be going to the legislature, trying to get Capitol. All of our requests are for our outlying buildings. So if you happen to be talking to any of your representatives in the legislature, please let them know that you support our capital requests, because our outlying buildings are old. I mean, I could tell you stories of just the 10 or 12 that I've seen. But we have a gorgeous new facility in Farmington, of course, but a lot of challenges in the capital department. So any support we could get from this board is appreciated. And finally, on the referral system, again, with the help of general fund dollars from the state, we did get some money that we are looking initially at trying to tackle this issue of referrals and co-enrollment. And so we're getting our thoughts together here. We'll be talking to all of the boards and to you and to the local boards about what might be something that can work given our existing systems and investments to make the processes that Eric was talking about more streamlined and efficient, and just so that we are all getting the most out of our resources and making it as seamless for our residents as possible. So thank you very much, both Lisa and Eric and all of your teams for all of your great work in the North.
Thank you, Secretary, and we thank you for attending our one-stop center ribbon cuttings in Farmington and Raton. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I think I saw Mathis next.
Thank you, Chair Roscoe. Lisa, thank you for that very informative presentation. Two questions. One is curiosity, the resurgence in Raton, is that due to any particular events or company or employers moving in? And second, the supplier base for some of your major partners, you know, in Los Alamos and Santa Fe, how much of their supplier base reaches out into, say, a Raton or Farmington for those? Looking at it just from curiosity about how that northern New Mexico supplier network provides and into some of these larger partners of yours.
Lisa, could I jump on the second question?
Yes, go ahead, Eric.
All right, regarding the supplier base for Los Alamos National Laboratory, as you know, it is a major facility. The Central Region has Sandia, and the Llano Community Programs Office and their Small Business Relationships Office works specifically trying to, they have an agreement through Congress so that their prime contractor has to do a certain percentage of business with local contractors. And so they have identified 7 counties in the region surrounding them as the areas that they are trying to work with. Raton, that's a stretch to get out to Raton, but they'll go as far out as San Miguel, which is Las Vegas, Taos, as far north, and down to Rio Rancho or the Sandoval County area. And I can tell you also they do, just because of the nature of New Mexico, probably almost half, and Rebecca could probably answer this better than I can, but I believe almost half of their local providers are coming out of the Albuquerque metro area.
Okay, thank you.
And Lisa, I'll let you do Raton.
Thank you, Eric. So Mr. Kalabari, who recently moved into Colfax County, has invested his money in several businesses and reopened several businesses in the community. And we were able to place several of our participants in a work experience and on-the-job training. And also with the opening of our one-stop center, did create some good information for the participants in the area.
Thank you for that.
All right, any other questions from the board? I'm not seeing any. I have a few, but in interest of time, I'll just limit it to one. I'm curious about your rural outreach. I imagine you have a lot of rural communities in your region. I wanted to know, how do you get out there? What are your strategies for providing services in those areas?
Mr. Chair, thank you. So we do have our service provider, Help New Mexico. They are in each of our county. They are in the area. They are in the one-stop centers, and they are providing that service, that outreach to our employers and to our participants. And with our institutions, you know, also they did visit every high school in the area in the northern region and provided some good information to the high schools for the youth.
And I would also add that our provider, our Title I provider, this is something that came about because of COVID. When everyone was shutting down, they still had metrics they needed to meet. So They sent people home for maybe a week, but then they brought them back in and were working remotely. So all their staff were not coming into the office, or they were sometimes in the office, but they were out in the field meeting with clients in parking lots, in parks. So they stayed out there. They also have offices beyond our one-stop centers. So we don't have a one-stop in Mora, but they do have an office in Mora that they're working out of. And you can see that reflected in the numbers, they came out of Mora. They're numbers driven, and they're really focused on making sure that they're getting out there. And I think COVID showed that we could do it by not staying in our offices.
Does your board have metrics for the service providers to reach all the communities? Is that how it's driven, or are they just expected to do it?
No, that's what's expected of our service provider, is to reach out in all of our rural communities in the northern region.
Got it. Okay, thank you, appreciate it. Any final questions from the board? I'm not seeing or hearing any. So Lisa, Eric, thank you so much for your time and your presentation.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, moving on to the next presentation, we have Gloria Juarez. She is the WIOA Administrator for the Southwestern Area Workforce Development Board. Welcome, Gloria.
Thank you, Chair Orozco and members of the board.
All right, it's on you now, Gloria.
All righty. Well, I have some big shoes to fill after Lisa's presentation, so go ahead and you're going to pull it up, John? Perfect. Okay, well, thank you for having us. I'm Gloria Juarez. I am the WIOA administrator in the southern part of the state. And I can kind of still consider myself new, but I've been told that after 6 months, you can no longer use that term. So I'm not the new girl anymore. Been here since December of 2021. But we have been working really diligently down in the South and really working with our board members and partners to really do our best in improving participant numbers and really just service in the southern part of the state. So we can go ahead and get started. Next slide. So of course, we're all recovering from the pandemic, it seems. One thing we did learn during the pandemic is, access to digital equipment and the ability to access the internet. And really just in general, it seems like although the majority of the folks have and participants and, everyone we deal with on a daily basis has smartphones, it still seems that digital literacy and actual digital equipment for preparing presentations, classes, participating in meetings, that type of thing was still lacking. And I still think, although we've dealt with this for, many years, it seems I still to this day hear, the word or the phrase, "you're on mute." Every single, almost, once a week we hear that. But that is still, we're trying to figure out a way to really just promote digital literacy, along with really just working back to in-person meetings and, increasing our day-to-day just walkthroughs through our workforce connection centers. We have learned that partnerships are extremely crucial in day-to-day operations, but especially during a crisis. I know that although I wasn't here having to adjust, I did work at a city government office, and really you just have to count on each other. Particularly in the South, we work with our workforce partners, DWS and service providers to just be sure that we continued our services with all the participants and that productivity did not, decrease. And with that, we have to focus continuously on streamlining procedures and processes to provide consistent service along the way, no matter what the environment is presented, whether it's a pandemic, whether it's day to day, whether everyone's healthy. And then post-pandemic, of course, many of the workforce adapted to flexible work schedules and environments. And so, that is providing challenges for folks to return to in-person and work set business hours. And, the recovery from the pandemic has been challenging, but it's also apparent that many of the supportive services are still needed. You know, during the pandemic, transportation shut down. Following that, you know, our public transportation shut down. And following that, you know, many rules and guidelines were necessary. Childcare still seems to be challenging, especially, you know, folks went back to work, kids went back to school, but if their numbers increased in school, they still had to shut down. Some classrooms shut down. So that really has provided some challenges in the daycare. And then also one thing we've experienced, even just in-person meetings for our board in general, is just, you know, the comfort levels of being in crowds again and being in in-person meetings. You know, the first board member I met with here at the local office was, you know, very cautious and really just not wanting to get very close to me to discuss certain things and just have the mask on and that type of thing. So you still see a little bit of the comfort level as an issue. But, you know, like everyone else, we're working through that. Next slide. So our goals for PY22 to increase performance, and the following initiatives and partners and collaborations will be implemented to improve our service delivery. One thing that's been discussed even in this meeting today is co-enrollment. We really want to increase our co-enrollments between the WIOA youth and adult dislocated worker programs, as well as with the providers such as vocational rehabilitation, adult education, TANF, Wagner, Pizer. That has been a goal not only of our board, I believe, but statewide. We will continue to foster partnerships like the Department of Corrections. We recently did a heavy equipment operator training, which was very successful. And so we really, our goal is to continue that type of partnership with the Department of Corrections, which is, you know, a need, I believe, across the state. Continuing a partnership with Las Cruces Public Schools and other public schools in our region to assist, you know, just daily and with individuals interested in teaching, but also, you know, just focus on the career pathways that some of the public schools have already started. We really want to collaborate with them and also just work on just increasing partnership in general. Increase face-to-face outreach opportunities to connect with the disconnected workforce individuals. This will increase the number of served individuals for career pathways. Also develop a co-enrollment policy with the TAA, to increase dislocated worker enrollments and wraparound services. This will eliminate participants' basic education and employment barriers. Next slide. Next slide, please.
John, oh, there's what happened.
No problem. I can just continue verbally if you'd like.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to John. Where is he?
All right, no problem.
Okay.
Well,
Oh, there he is. Go ahead and go ahead and keep going on, Gloria, and
Okay,
we'll
great.
catch up with you. So the next slide,
In
okay.
the Southwest, we plan to work with business communities as identified with the board, which are aerospace, agriculture, education, healthcare, logistics, warehousing, manufacturing, mining, hospitality and tourism, and information technology. And then, of course, our board has voted on some specific industries to address and target as a, you know, which are healthcare and education. And this was done a couple of years ago. So one thing that we will I'll discuss a little bit later as well is we really want to reevaluate these priorities by the board. The board has changed, of course, the climate and environment and workforce has changed. So we really want to refocus our efforts on that. Some industry projections long-term in the Southwest are healthcare and social assistance, accommodation and food services, educational services, professional, scientific, and technical services, administrative and support and waste management and remediation services. Going back to the priorities on the for the business communities that we want to work for, I know I've had a lot of questions as far as why is aerospace on there? Well, that's basically was decided by the board due to the spaceport. So that's why that's on there. But moving on to the next slide. You know, one thing we have lacked on is proper implementation of the initiatives due to the pandemic and also change in administrative entity staff. So we have a career pathways plan. And it really has, I mean, as I state here in full transparency, it's really been set on the shelf and not a whole lot of work is being done. We did have one board member who was very involved and really took this kind of under her wing, took the career pathways and sector strategies component of this. And we've been meeting with her quite a bit. And we also hired a project manager, which I'm really proud to announce, Mayor Javier Perea from Sunland Park. So he'll be, of course, continue as mayor, but he has a lot of knowledge of government, a lot of extreme knowledge and partnerships. And so he will be leading the you know, his primary focus will be development, implementation, and improvement of the sector strategies and career pathways. And, you know, along with this renewed spirit, as we continue to call it in our office, is we'll provide, you know, review of most of the recent data, and then it'll be presented to the local boards to ensure that interest is continuing with the two sectors that were chosen in healthcare and education. So that's one thing that we'll be scheduling some committee meetings with to go over that, and then of course eventually present it to our board. Next slide. Okay, so moving on to just continuing the implementation of sector strategies, the occupation group of healthcare practitioners and technical occupations remains as the industry with the highest number of job openings in the Southwest. And it has fewer candidates available as of September 18, 2022 compared to October of 2019. Education is also projected to grow with 542 new positions between 2018 and 2028. And recently had 112 job openings and 68 candidates available. Education is still within the top 5 industries for employment projections in the Southwest. Construction has increased from 249 to 508 additional project positions, moving into the top 5 ranks. So this is a new top 5 industry in our region. However, construction only has 57 job postings and 405 candidates. So definitely a lack of jobs for this amount of folks searching for this type of career. Next slide. All right. You know, one of the biggest initiatives here is focusing on just employer engagement. And of course, once the focus industry sectors have been either reaffirmed, our board can choose the same, or re-identified, a list of companies in those sectors will be compiled from across 7 counties. And then we will initially start our employer surveys, and we'll develop those surveys and administer to capture the current employment needs of employers. The project manager will also conduct visits to companies to promote workforce services, collect data, and help build rapport with industry leaders. You know, one of the biggest challenges I think will be getting everyone in the same room, but we're definitely focused to roundtable discussions, coordinated review the data collected, and establish benchmarks for the measurable success. I know that a couple of years ago, some roundtable discussions were held. Ever since then, not a whole lot came out of that. You know, like I said, I'm just going to be fully transparent with our lacking in this area. But we definitely are amped up and ready to really change and shift this, you know, this measure. So, coordinate with a one-stop operator, and DWS is our one-stop operator recently established meetings. They started to have meetings with and really promote a unified business teams. I know our chairman Orozco, I met with him a couple months ago, and one thing he stated was, you know, it causes a little confusion when you have your DWS employees and then maybe your administrative interior service providers come to the businesses, and in the end, you know, we really want to promote that one unified team instead of having 2 separate, you know, set of folks attend, you know, business meetings or talk to you at your own business. So we really want to align that and provide business services to our communities in a more unified fashion. Next slide. Our projected number of participants to be served this year, and just for a note, these are the final negotiated level numbers. We recently sat down with Michael Yang and our board chair and our CEO, and we came to the agreement on these participant levels. Youth is 495. That is a huge goal for us, but we're eager and ready to try to make that happen. And then the adults, 277, and your dislocated worker at 190. Next slide. Some of the post-COVID strategies that we're trying to initiate in our region is just promote continuity of access to services in whatever form is best to the local area. One thing that I've noticed is working in government, it seems like the private sector is really good at business continuity plans, and it seems like in the public sector, we're not as strong in those areas. But we're definitely wanting to promote, some sort of continuity plans so that in case we have to pivot and forced to do something different during, for instance, like during the pandemic, we want to be strong in that area. We want to break down silos, of course, and then integrate them to coordinate tactics, tools, and technologies needed for effective crisis response. And we continue to stay focused on this, backup plan just in case anything, serious occurs. I think we were all faced with the unknown and different challenges that beyond our belief during the pandemic. So we want to be sure that we're prepared and ready and know how to just shift into a different providing services in a different manner when necessary. Focusing on increasing foot traffic. That is huge. We, of course, everyone was used to staying home during the pandemic. We really want to get foot traffic increase. So we've been holding some community appreciation events, job fairs, career fairs, hiring events. I'm really trying to just get the word out and have businesses in our workforce connection centers to really increase that traffic. We've had some pretty successful events in the last couple of months. And so that's going to continue, and we really want to amp it up. And also, not only are we expecting folks to come to us, we're trying to get out to, community areas. We had a group at the Deming Duck races, for instance, and we really want to just get the word out to folks. If they're not coming to us, we want to go to them. So that's another focus that we're really trying to work hard on in our region. Refocusing digital efforts, of course, to reflect the changing customer expectations. Continue providing remote access to services for those not close to a local office. So although we are trying to increase foot traffic, we're also really trying to be, to focus on digital efforts as well. So it's a combination of both increasing foot traffic, but also for those people that cannot make it to our offices, we still want them to participate in what we have to offer. Support local emotional and mental health of participants and staff to understand and eliminate barriers, and also rebuild relationships with local organizations to increase co-enrollments. Next slide. So a little bit about labor market information. Of course, we're really trying to increase employment in the entire region. But as we all know, in our region, we have Luna County, which has had the New Mexico's highest unemployment rate. And this year it's at 9%. And then Luna County had the largest over the year decrease in unemployment rate with the 5.3%. And so that is, Luna County is one area that our one-stop operator and the service providers have really been working on. We recently initiated a Luna County Workforce Economic Development Collaborative meeting, and that is comprised of the city, the county, public schools, Chamber of Commerce, Economic Development, and higher education. We're really developing this meeting slowly but surely. First of all, we had economic development and then the county, and now we're attempting to bring in all the other partners in that area, and really just evaluating the root cause of consistently high employment rate down in Luna County and address the skill level in the area as well, and focusing on higher education. So like I said, we are working on, of course, improving employment in the entire region, but a high focus has been in Luna County. Next slide. As far as the state support, what we need from the state is, just some increase in technical assistance training. I can tell you that the support that I've had personally, and just as an administrative entity from the state has been extremely responsive and supported this year. I really don't think I could have done it without them or even come this far. So I really appreciate them. And I've stated that before, but also maybe it's just my city and county experience, but I feel like if we could develop a method for sharing best practices and promoting consistency and aligning the local initiatives, that would be very helpful. You know, we all know that the central performs very well, and the east does as well, and the north and south is really working hard to meet their measures as well. But we feel that if I feel like if we could really just start sharing best practices, which the state does have the WIOA Wednesday meetings, and that is highly important and informative, and really just, you know, piggybacking off what everyone else is doing, their best practices, and not reinventing their wheel is important. So other than that, we believe that the state does a really good job at supporting us, and they have me. I mean, I really have some folks on speed dial, so I appreciate that assistance. But and then we're fortunate enough to have the board chair as vice chair on our board as well. So he's a wealth of knowledge and resource for us. So with that being said, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for the presentation. If there's any other questions, I will be happy to answer. And as well, you can also contact me later via email if you're looking for a little bit more data-driven information, or if you have any questions later as well. There's my email and my phone number. But thank you all for your time.
Thank you, Gloria. First off, are there any questions from the board? I see Carla.
Thank you. Glory, so with regards to the construction, you mentioned that it was now the top 5. So there were job positions increase, but the job openings were low as compared to the candidates looking for work. Can you explain to me how is the positions of an increase of, is it just people, is it companies looking for different types of positions? I'm having a hard time understanding the process.
Okay, yes, I believe that it's just the different companies looking for different types of positions, and you have a workforce, you know, folks interested in that career, but maybe not necessarily in that specific area that the jobs are available in. So I would, and unfortunately our project manager pulled this information. He's not on this call, but we do have Peter, so in case I need any other backup. But I believe that that the construction, the numbers have increased as far as, let me go back to that slide really quickly. Yeah, so the amount of candidates, it seems, are could be looking for construction jobs, but there are different areas of the construction field that they appear to be looking for.
Okay. So they're not necessarily trained in the specific job types that are being requested, is what I think we're understanding. And we can get some more clarification for you on that, Carla, because I think what was confusing, Gloria, is when you presented it, it looked like it was 57 job openings, but that's not what it is. It's 57 types of occupations. Is that what it is?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay.
I apologize. Yeah, I will definitely get some clarification on that. Get that.
Okay.
I can figure out later. I don't need to get into specifics.
Okay.
I know to get a hold of you, but yeah, I was just curious as to now that it's top 5. So it'll bring me to my second question. So you said it had been a couple of years since the board had addressed the industry targets. How are they determining the industries? Are you guys working with economic development and sector strategies? Will there be another time where the board will then address which industries to really focus on?
Correct. So the typically our planning committee will come together and evaluate data. You know, we'll present the data on where we stand, just data-driven information, right? And then also, for instance, like when the aerospace was chosen, that was chosen just talking to economic development from what I've heard from my team is talking to folks from economic development and then local government agencies, and really that was chosen due to the spaceport. So that's the process that they'll use a little bit of data plus working with economic development and chamber of commerce and that type of organizations within our region.
Okay.
All right. I think I saw Bryn, you raised your hand, but maybe you took it away.
Well, apparently Carla Kugler and I are like kindred spirits, because as soon as she started asking the question, I was like, well, I'm done.
Well, good. We got a 2-for-1 there. Okay, Mathis.
Thank you.
Staying on the theme of the industries and the companies, as you're reaching out and talking to these companies, what are they providing you with their top 5 in terms of what they expect out of or what they need from the workforce board, local workforce board, or workforce activities? What are their needs? What are they saying that their needs are?
As I said, we haven't hit the ground running as far as really targeting our sectors. That's our major goal for this year. And but it seems like just in general, there's people lacking just workforce in general. And so we have to really focus on what they need and why they're not getting folks, and really just promoting the job openings, making sure that they're getting what they need, as far as just that people know that they're hiring, right? That's one of the biggest things that we're trying to do, is get the word out. I think focusing on and just assisting them on whatever the needs are. I can't tell you that specifically we know what needs are for each sector now, but that's one thing that we want to really narrow down.
Well, I'm hearing from some of the these boot camps, CNM and the other community colleges, that retraining, getting people trained, the construction industry questions relate to that. Seems like the retraining or the helping people move into other occupations is something that a lot of these companies appear to want. I'm just wondering if that's, be curious to see when you do your when you reach out, what you're getting back from these companies.
Yeah, I do believe it's really interesting I mean, we're excited to really try to figure out and focus down, like we talked about, what is the critical needs of the businesses. Like I said, I don't believe our team as the administrative entity know the answers yet. But we're really focusing on that. So hopefully we can have some better answers and more clarity in a few months.
Great, thanks. Look forward to it.
All right, Secretary Nair.
Again, just wanted to say thank you to Glory for that presentation and for all your work. Glory and I got to work together in the trenches in the mayor's office for a couple of years. And so I know that once she gets her mind to something, we're going to absolutely find out the answer to all of these questions. I have a lot of confidence in her abilities. I also want to say sorry for missing the ribbon cutting in Sunland Park, but I think, the physical, as you mentioned in your presentation, it's that combination of making sure everyone knows the doors are open, but then also being out in the community and making sure we're going to the folks. So again, just happy to have you here, Gloria, and thanks for all your work and for the great presentation.
Thank you, Secretary. We will definitely keep you on our invite list for future events. Thank you.
All right, were there any other questions from the board? I don't see any. I did have a question. So the unemployment rate.
I'm sorry, Chair, I do
Oh.
see that Commissioner Sanchez raised his hand.
Just in the nick of time. Go ahead, Commissioner.
And thank you, Chairman. And I apologize trying to squeeze in here. It's not so much a question so much as a comment that, I think Glory and the team down in the southwestern areas really worked hard, particularly coming out of the pandemic. And I think, where the Secretary just mentioned the opening of the office in Sunland Park, I think is going to not just for the foot traffic and reaching people, but we've seen a ton of growth, which Chairman, I know you can attest to in the Santa Teresa area, in the southern part of Doña Ana County. And so, really hoping that with the plans that we have in place, with the team that Glory has, that they will continue to find opportunities within the region to really find placement for people, because I think we're starting to see more opportunities pop up, and I think it's good for not just for our residents, but also the companies that are coming and relocating to southern New Mexico. So I just wanted to at least put it out there that I know Glory and the team have done an amazing job, really trying to set everything up and kind of plant the seeds for these, hopefully, to take on these challenges and see this see these things grow as we continue on. So thank you, Chairman.
Thanks, Commissioner. And I think Kelly, you had your hand up too. Did you still have a question?
Mathis covered my sector workforce needs data question, but it does kind of lead to just another question. And again, I'm still relatively new to this board, but with regards to Glory, your ask for aligning best practices and helping to promote consistency, I'm just curious, is there a centralized listserv or forum for sharing best practices amongst the workforce boards?
I will take a stab at that. So this is Deputy Secretary. So one of the things that we do have is we do have a shared space. Well, we have a space on our website where we do keep like all of our policies and information that we have for boards. But one of the things that Glory mentioned is that we do host what we call a WIOA Wednesday, and it's an every other Wednesday meeting with the boards. And we've had this since we started the implementation of WIOA about 5 years ago. And the purpose of that was so that we could bring them together as a network, consistently talk about the practices and the pieces that are going into play. We have been embarking on some evaluation activities that are part of like a statewide view. We evaluate a particular practice, we evaluate a particular program, and then we also share that out. We could do better on that, and I thought that was a wonderful recommendation. Because one of the things that also happens is when we get a visit by a federal program officer, and if they're going out to a particular site, they will also lift up for us what we think is a best practice. And we've had some best practices that have been lifted up, and those are the things that we're kind of implementing or pushing forward. So for example, a best practice was that co-enrollment piece between Wagner-Peiser and Title I, and really pushing more towards that, especially on our RESEA. And so we've honed that in. I know that the Eastern Board has done a really good job of developing that, and we're pushing with all of the other boards to actually implement the same program. I think what you see is that the local work is also local work, and we take into account what's happening in that particular region. We take into account in terms of the staffing that they also have. It's hard for us to push it all just at once, because we do want to work in partnership with our local areas, so that it's a dance that we push. I think they feel sometimes we're pushing too hard, and sometimes we continue to do it. So that is the purpose of our WIOA Wednesday meetings, is so that we can be in continuous partnership with them and making sure. So we develop our policies in partnership with them as well before we put out a policy for the boards that we know is going to impact service delivery. One of our best practices is to put it out for draft. We get input and guidance from them, and then we come again together, we discuss it, and then we put it out. So we definitely can get better at putting up some best practices around programs and activities that are going on, and start to catalog those a little bit better. I think we've cataloged them internally, but we haven't done it outwardly, and we definitely could do that. So I thought that was a great recommendation, Glory.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Last chance. All right. Well, I did have one question, and it's in regards to Luna County, and they've always seemed to have that really high unemployment rate. And I know the kind of coalition meeting that you described has only met once, but so far, do you have a sense, or does the I don't know if coalition is the right word, does the group have an idea of why those numbers might be so high?
Preliminary discussions have not, really determined a root cause of that. We had economic development on, and it seems like, and she's on our board as well, the director down in Luna County. But, she really can't pinpoint exactly what the issue is. And that's why we stress on, many will say in the community, well, it's seasonal work. There's a lot of seasonal work. But when you're not when it's during the season, for instance, like chili season, people are working, the unemployment rate is still really high. So we haven't really determined the root cause. We're slowly getting that organization together, and hopefully we can really do some digging in and really just some reviewing data and discussions. And so we had then there were some changes in Luna County economic development. Luna County has their own economic development department, the Luna County government. And so there were changes there. So we haven't had them at the table for a couple of months. And I believe we've had just a couple of meetings with them. So we're really trying to get everyone on board. And that has been a challenge in itself.
Well, it's great that group is meeting. I know, I think it was at an LFC meeting. There were some specific questions about Luna County and why it's so high. So I know that some of the legislators would be really interested in those findings. And I didn't have an answer for them, unfortunately. So it's great that this group is getting together.
Yeah.
And I did attend the last meeting that they had, and someone had commented that as a possible reason for this was, people work during the growing season and then they just are not interested in some other type of job. It's just so much part of their life that's the life that they live. And during the off season, they don't work. And that's just kind of how they want it. And so this kind of segues into our next discussion, is the labor force participation rate. And so I'm moving forward. Thank you, Glory. I wanted kind of a cool segue there, but it was, I guess, a little bit awkward. But thank you for your time and your presentation. Great stuff and great questions by the board. So trying to use that as a segue into our next discussion. New Mexico typically has a very low labor force participation rate. And I think a lot of us know that this is a hindrance to our growth of our economy. How can we move that needle forward? I think we are missing out on real economic growth because, for whatever reasons, people don't want or don't need to work. So how do we move that needle? And so I wanted to take a little bit of time, and I'm glad that the secretary linked that PDF in the chat. And John, I don't know if you saw my message. Can you pull that up for us? So I was trying to briefly go over this, and it's astounding, how low we are compared to the rest of the country. And if we could just move that needle a little bit, how much that could help our businesses, how much that could add to our economy. And so what I'm hoping is we can start at least trying to ask questions and maybe get some answers and some data to see what can the state do in this regard. How do we increase the number of people participating? So I wanted to ask, first off, of our board members, how might this be impacting your industries? Are you noticing that people just don't want to work, or, I know we saw a big drop during COVID for obvious reasons. And in some industries, I think they're starting to see those people come back, but some others aren't. So I think I wanted to start it off with, at this meeting, what are you seeing in your industries with regards to labor force participation? This is a discussion, so I'll just kind of open it up. Anybody, if you want to chime in, please do so.
I'm
Deborah.
ready. Yep. I'm in the events and trade show industry, and we're really struggling now. I'm lucky because I'm local and I kept 80% of my employees through COVID. So I have the experience, but I'm still trying to find 2 more bodies and to find people that really want to get in and work for a high performance team. They don't want to. They want a job where they can go get more money at Chick-fil-A and McDonald's than they can working for a small business. And I pay pretty well. My least paid employee is at $17 an hour.
Wow. What type of skills are necessary for those positions?
Well, the one I'm looking for isn't at the 17, they're more at the 20 an hour. And it's for customer service rep to handle all our repeat customers and repeat orders.
Wow.
Yeah. And I'm paying in payroll 32% more than I did in 2019 with 2 bodies less, with all of the extra benefits, paid sick leave, insurance, PTO, all that, and salary increases.
That's incredible.
Looking, DJ, are they looking for something that they can, I mean, I was just wondering, is it post-pandemic too, also looking for the ability to work from home? Or is that also part of what's it?
And I haven't had that problem.
Okay.
It's so funny. I gave that option to a couple of people. I do have one person once a week works at home. Everybody else wants to be here because we're such a face-to-face company. The biggest problem is I hired someone to do printing, and they really can't do the job, and they're not motivated. They don't take initiative. I've tried to motivate with money and incentives, and I don't know what to do because now I'm stuck with an employee if I let go and replace them, 2 of them, and they're actually Gen Zs. I'm not seeing initiative anymore, and I'm really struggling with a high performance team and having some dead weight on a couple members. It's hard.
Mathis, do you have a comment?
Yeah, so, I've been primarily in the past 6-7 years in the high tech space, startup going to small size company. And so we hire a lot of engineers, need a lot of engineering talent. Haven't had much of a problem finding that.
That's high end though. That's a lot
Exactly.
different. Yeah. We're
Exactly.
talking about a little more on the clerical and the
Well, so-
front line.
Yeah, so at the high end side of it, it's not an issue. But when it comes down to finding, good receptionists, some of the, the work in terms of the office manager role, just the if you would, the glue that keeps the whole organization together. Yeah, we're the $17, $17.50, $20 an hour. And generally you find someone enthusiastic to begin, and then it just peters off. And it's not a consistent reason why it peters off. As you can see, I enjoyed working from home. I do it a couple of days a week, rest of the time in the office. And so it's not really that. It's not that. It's I can't really put my finger on it, but I agree with you, DJ. It's the same kind of thing.
It's a different work ethic in today's workforce. Because I have millennials, I have Gen Zs, I have a Gen Xer. I'm probably the last boomer left. And it's interesting. And I get along really well with, millennials because I can relate to their technology. I'm pretty high tech. I'm struggling with this new generation, 20 something. Now my assistant is 20 something. She's the bomb. She is not in that category, but I have 2 other employees in that category. They can't critical think. They need to be micromanaged, and we don't have that kind of business here. We empower people, we teach them, we train well. I'm struggling to run a company at the standard that our clients are used to. I have to run to another call really quick. I had a conference call and I know this was supposed to be over 11:30. You wanted to say one more thing before I leave?
Well, I was just going to say, yeah, I agree with you. And Burdell Decker here, the aspect about McDonald's, Chick-fil-A, whatnot, Dale would say the same thing. He's losing people. We can't get people from that. He talks about CND Labs as well, but you're right. In that spectrum of employment, it's hard for these small businesses to attract these workers.
I'm working harder now. I'm working harder now in management than I ever have running my company. My employees could run the company without me. And I'm struggling because I'm pulled back in the business way too much.
You get those gaps. Yeah. Gap management.
Thanks, everybody. Do you need any voting at the end before I leave on the quorum?
No, we're all set.
Okay, I'll see you at the next board meeting, y'all.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Thanks for your input too. So anybody else having similar or different experiences with workforce? So I know I work with a lot of industries down here in Santa Teresa, and they never really slowed down during the pandemic. I think only a couple had to shut down, but everybody else was deemed essential. So the operations kept going. So it's a little bit different of an experience with them. But the thing is that they've always had a hard time finding employees. I think that's partially just because of we're not next to, there's just a distance for employees where they live to where they work. But interestingly enough, also mid-level employees are difficult to find, and then driving 15 minutes isn't as hard for a middle skilled employee. So that was something interesting that Debbie had mentioned too, how middle skilled employees are difficult to find and retain. Anybody else? And I've also heard some on the radio talking, and this is specific to Doña Ana County, but agriculture is having a very difficult time finding employees. A lot of those employees that are doing it, they're aging out, and the farmers can't get new employees to come fill those. If you can imagine, their workforce is in their 50s, working the farms, and so that's something that ag is facing in our region. Just young people have a different idea of what they want to do as they grow up. So interesting how it's impacting everybody.
I think it's an interesting conversation in terms of the age gaps, right? Because let's see, Dr. Gonzalez on here is shaking his head with me in approval, in agreement, because what's happening at the school level too has been a real concentrated effort on helping young people really to think about college. And a lot of our focus, I think, at the K-12 space had been on preparation for college. And so students had a very different perspective of what it was going to look like for them, post-graduation. We've always known that there's a gap. There is still a gap for kids that don't go to college. But really in that K-12 space, not a lot of conversation about career and what could your different careers look like, and the types of kind of work ethic or the kinds of jobs that you could be doing there, because the conversation that you're all having, it's that entry level position. We just had a conversation recently on the entry level of a CNA, for example, an explosion of openings there for sure. And the pay is pretty low for sure. It's an entry level position. And so the employers are having a real difficult time too with that in terms of how do we incentivize them as they're coming in, also helping maybe to develop the career pathway, maybe to the next step. I mean, that conversation with a young person needs to be also, your first job isn't going to be your only job, but your first job is going to be your step into the workforce, and how that's going to be so valuable to you in terms of the skills that you're going to have as you develop your career along the way. And I know that PED has a real commitment to sort of changing this narrative and this conversation around how we're also assisting our young people in thinking about career development and, you know, their trajectory into work and that pathway that they need to take. So I'll stop saying more than that because you've got some hands up, Chair.
Carla, did I see you raise your hand?
Yes, I did, and I apologize, I didn't raise it officially, but I know that from our industry and from my membership, they have been trying to the traditional benefits, right? Retirement, healthcare, you know, have where they are beneficial to more, I'm going to say, established people. That they need those things and they appreciate those things. They have been trying, you know, I think our employers are struggling with providing those different types of benefits to attract young people. So we've had some members that have done, you know, 4-day work weeks, you know, to try and, you know, provide the, you know, if they want a Friday off or, you know, to try and pivot to be a little bit more beneficial to what younger people may or may not want, because those traditional you know, established benefits that would, you know, that more of our seasoned individuals want, and they've always, you know, they rely on, they're trying to figure out how to attract people with, you know, things. For us, they have to come in every day. You can't do construction remotely. So you know, you have to show up. That's part of it. You know, we can't do it. So it, you know, in that case, how are we going to attract those that, you know, when the standard, you know, really good, honestly, really good benefits, those aren't selling points to youth right now. They're just not. And fortunately, I hate to say this, they got to go out and, you know, have a family before they're like, oh crap, I need healthcare. You know, I really do want a retirement package or something like that. So I think they're struggling with trying to figure out how, what can they offer that are benefits that are more enticing for young individuals, because it's hard work and they can't get around the fact that it's not hard work.
That's a very good point. Debbie, I think you were next.
Thank you, Josh. So I believe in my role as chamber exec here in the industry in 40 years in the state, as well as I am now the chair of the Bridge of Southern New Mexico. I think this is twofold. To Carla's point, we have to be aware of the new quote unquote employee. We have to be aware of the generational breakdown within our work environment and work families. And then we have to also talk about the changing workplace. So I'm going to give a plug. We're actually doing a Future of Work Summit here in Las Cruces next week with Deloitte, who's one of our partners. And it's been really interesting in the conversations. So I think from Yolanda and Madam Secretary, from your standpoint, we have got to figure a way to help you all, because we have got to really educate the workplace on the future, what's happening there. They have to think differently a little bit. And then the worker, just like Carla said, it's different. So you almost have to treat the segments generational different throughout. And COVID has brought a lot of changes from, I think, the attitude of the workforce. Those employees that are looking for jobs, they're looking for different things than they may have been pre-COVID. And as the workforce now, we've got to get it changed and see what's going on. So I think it's just going to take all of us working together to figure this out. But I can send that information out, but it's a Future Work Summit next week here. But I know that there's some people in Albuquerque that want to duplicate it in that going forward. Thanks, Josh.
Thanks, Debbie. Amber.
Yeah, just a brief comment. I've actually hesitated to speak up because I'm not from industry. I'm from adult education at the state. But in these kind of conversations, I always feel like we should be sure to also mention some of the, you know, the realities that people are still dealing with, even before the pandemic, but still with the pandemic, that I think are also impacting these things. Sometimes I chafe a little bit, and I understand where people are coming from. This is a very complex problem. But I still sometimes chafe at characterizations of different groups of, generations of people as lacking a work ethic, or it being so fundamentally different. I think people's expectations have also changed. And I think that the pandemic had a lot to do with that. I know that in adult education, we're still dealing with very high levels of difficulty finding childcare, very, big problems with transportation and things like that, that are really inhibiting people's ability to get places and just to kind of deal with life on a daily basis. We lost a lot of people in New Mexico. A lot of people lost caregivers. A lot of people lost, others that they were caring for, leaving them caring for a parent or something like that. So I think there's been some real fundamental shifts. And I think that when I hear some of you talking about the flexibility that has been introduced in the workforce and the way in those changes, I think that's really part of the key, is understanding that life has changed for a lot of people. People are not, recovered. The pandemic is not over for a lot of people. And I think that's really impacting this problem as well. That's all I wanted to mention on that.
Thanks. And kind of related to that, it's kind of funny. I saw on the internet, who knows if it's real, right? But clippings going back, I think 100 years from newspapers, and people complaining about the new generation, how they don't have the same work ethic and they're just not up to it. It seems like that's always a problem. And when I entered the workforce as a millennial, I think it was the same conversation, people trying to figure out how to handle or how to do with a millennial. So it seems like it's an ongoing thing. Angelo.
Yeah, and I know we're running short on time, so I just want to thank Deputy Secretary Montoya Cordova for recognizing the work that we're doing at PED, and to say that I'd love to maybe go deeper on this conversation about what we're doing in K-12 to better prepare students truly for college, career, and life with a stronger focus on the career part of that. One thing I want to mention and kind of lift up is two things. One is that we are engaged in a conversation with employers right now. Secretary Steinhaus has pulled together a gathering of employers from across the state. Some of the folks in this group are participants. We are looking to the employers right now to help us provide input into the recommendations we're taking to the legislature at the beginning of next year. So I want to invite all of you as well, if you have ideas and input into the kind of policy priorities that we should be lifting up at PED. I'd love to hear from you. And the second thing is work-based learning. I mean, that's the top thing we're hearing. And I think that could go a long way to really addressing a lot of what I heard today from the employers on this call. Really having a much more kind of systematic way of connecting students to employers before they graduate, so that they can have those experiences and build those critical skills that we know are so necessary when students graduate and get into their first jobs. So I'm excited to be here. It's my first meeting, and to really jump in and be a partner with all of you in this work, and look forward to our next discussions together.
Thank you. Mathis.
Well, so it's great timing that I'm following right behind you, Angela, because I'm looking at this from the employer perspective, thinking, what is it that the students could be prepared for? What can employers? Because I agree with this aspect that I think Debbie was saying, or Ember was saying, is that yes, there's this historical aspect about why can't the youth be more excited about coming to work, but some of that is also what is the perspective as they come in. The starting level position may not obviously be where they want to end up. So how can a company look to this group to say what can the company get from the whole process of helping students get prepared, people changing careers. If as a company we could be better at explaining, look, it's just a starting position and here's where you could go. I can lay out all the career development parts within a particular company, but that's a particular company. It's not the broader spectrum of someone coming in to start to work for me and then really wanting to go on into some other industry, but right now I have a job, they need a job, and so they take it. So I'm kind of putting it out, and I think, Angela, that whole aspect, and I'd love to get more involved with that, is helping these students. And I look at it a lot in terms of the university, getting graduate students prepared to go to work for a company, back when they're a sophomore or a junior. K to 12, it's as well as important for the students to have some perspective coming into a company that, that's not it. That's just a first step toward many more steps. So I'll stop there, but I'd love to be a part of that.
Thanks, Mathis. Kelly.
I'll be quick. I just wanted to offer up a opportunity should anybody want to know more. I understand that everybody is faced with kind of this fast track workforce engagement and these growth initiatives. We're taking a little bit of a different approach at our membership retreat. I am bringing in a global speaker who is going to work with us on a customized workforce engagement assessment. And this is kind of a global approach that this particular company and speaker is taking on. And so just real quick, the research kind of aims to measure and compare the sentiment of workforce across industries and organizations and kind of directly capture the employee's voice and interpret the employee's perception, right, of their work environment, but then to also understand the industry's voice of the companies that are represented. So I would be happy to share this. We're paying top dollar to bring this person in. And so I hope it's going to be valuable and useful. And I'd be happy to share more resources with anybody interested after the fact.
Please, yeah, I definitely would appreciate that, Kelly.
I think that would be fascinating for sure, because maybe there is something that we could learn from that. Part of our outreach at the department is also with businesses, and we know that they need assistance as well in terms of things that maybe we need to provide them some guidance, some technical assistance, training on ways that they can be more responsive too. I love your thoughts, Mr. Shinnick, on that, because I think the more that we can also share with the business and the business environment, their contribution to helping us to grow a workforce or to develop a workforce, and how meaningful that can be. The work-based learning piece, and I'm going to reach out to DJ, because I was thinking maybe we ought to work with her on a work-based learning placement with that position that she has there, because that might be a way to also develop that first step in for somebody in for her company. But Kelly, I'm really fascinated to hear, what that's going to do and how you grow that and what it turns out to be.
All right. Any final comments or questions? Okay, then we can end that there. We're running a little bit over time. So just FYI, I want to have some of these discussion topics whenever we can, if the agenda permits. I would also like to do some reports from our business members to see how things are going, how things are that they are seeing in their different industries. So we'll see if we can keep that going moving forward. Okay, let's move on to the next item is chair and board comments. Are there any comments from any of the board members for this meeting? Debbie, I don't know if you want to mention a little bit more about the conference you have coming up.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So the Future of Work Summit, we're bringing in national speakers from Deloitte. They've done a lot of research over the past year, particularly post-COVID, on the next generation of work and the next generation of workforce. It is Wednesday afternoon, the 12th, beginning at 2 to 5, and then again on Thursday from 8 to noon, ending with our regular luncheon on talent and workforce. They're bringing in one of their keynote speakers, and I'd be happy to send it to either Yolanda or out to everyone. The registration information is $95. That includes the lunch. It's going to be a great event. We're really excited.
And I do have the flyer already, Debbie, so I'll forward it on to John and he can send it to all the board members.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. Yeah, it is looking to be a very good conference. I was interviewed by a couple of people from Deloitte for like an hour on workforce stuff. So it seems like they're really diving into some of the issues. So I think it'll be a great conference. Anybody else? I'm not seeing or hearing anything. So the only comment that I have is we're looking to reestablish a business outreach committee, kind of thinking about what that should do. So I know I'm going to be in conversations with Yolanda. I know Mathis was very interested in that. So just FYI, that's something that's coming up. All right. Moving on to public comments, and John told me that we did not have any. Is that still correct, John?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
All right, so no public comments. And that brings us to the end of our agenda. If there are no other comments and if there are no objections, then this meeting is adjourned. All right, thank you, everyone. Thank you for your time and for being here.
Thank you, everyone. It was good to see you.